you kind of almost have to take Antifa for what they say, and you can look at like how many actions has BLM done versus how many things have actually ended up being violent, but you can't apply that logic to the other side as the problem.
So,
and that creates like a technical kind of like divide or schism, I'm going to say, that we haven't like learned how to address.
So I would say my specific problem is whether or not we are willing to excuse these things in the meantime, or whether or not we denounce them. If we say like, yes, I think that BLM is a good, it has a great cause. I'm on board with them. I'm out there protesting with them, or even Antifa. I'm on board with Antifa. I think that their ideals are good and they're correct, and this is what I want. But I denounced the violence. I denounced the burning down of buildings. I denounced these other things that just happen to come with them. I don't think that that's wrong to say. And I think that it is something that a lot of people feel as though if they denounce the violence with BLM or with Antifa, they're denouncing BLM and Antifa. And I don't see it that way.
Cool.
But I think that lots of other people do. And that's where I'm trying to draw a line, is to say we can denounce the violence and say that we're still on board with these programs.
And I'm glad you're nuanced like that. I'm just saying that like the more you try to like push that message into right leading spaces, the less you're going to get like a return on investment.
True.
Yeah, but if you can't denounce like violence against cops, that's like not a good environment.
No, I'm just saying like
that?
The effectiveness is like not proportional. It'll mean more to us than it will to them.
Cops aren't the ones that should be like afraid of violence. It's cops that are committing the violence against everyone else, like the fist of the state. That's the problem, right? Like a cop is far more likely to kill someone else than someone else killing a cop. Like cops do die in a lot of doing. That's not a thing it's a thing that does happen in the world. But everyone else, the public, should be afraid of them, especially since there's no punishment at all that comes their way, right? The state always backs cops, right? And refuses to hold them accountable for any of their actions. But on the other side of their violence, right, people don't get justice.
Right.
So, I disagree with Anna, like putting that out. Go ahead.
I would say, like, in a video game, when it comes to violence against police officers, I would agree if they are the ones that are standing in your way from achieving your goal, and they're the ones who are violent against you as well, which in a lot of cases, especially in the BLM protests, we saw this on a consistent basis. I would say that in that point, like, the police are, even if they're obeying orders, I don't give a crap. Like, they are standing in the way of justice at that point, and it doesn't really matter anymore. Like, they can call out of work or they can disappear. Like, I know that might sound ridiculous, but they can. Like, they just can't.
What happens if the mentality of that mob like starkly disagrees with like the mentality of the Justice Department, and what they're going for is like clear and stated mutiny? Do you think like maybe that breaks down a bit?
Yeah,
because it could be wrong. I'm not saying it can't be right. I'm just saying it could be wrong.
Yeah, but the problem is that when the actual police department or the government in that area, because it goes above the police department normally, like if they are the ones who seem to believe that just protesting in general needs to be stopped, and now we need to start throwing out like tear gas and pepper spray and hitting everybody randomly with rubber bullets, like, then at that point, yeah, I would say like probably anarchy is still better than that.
What? Who wants anarchy? This like these both.
Like, I agree. We gave up.
I mean, that was the entire point of the whole, like, what was it? I can't remember the name of it. I don't watch enough right-wing media to remember it, but the blocks that were cut off, like, for an anarchist state, you guys know what I'm talking about, for like,
yeah, the Chaz.
Yeah, the Chaz, yes. Like, that sort of thing, like, yeah.
Like, I agree that we gave up like a significant right when we let the police like basically throw down every protest that spurred up, and we lack nuance with like the enforcement of these things in the system that definitely like criminalizes a certain degree of protest that could be effective when like the system is not.
Senpai Chow, is there something you want to add? Thank you for being here. Is something you want to add?
Not to this current conversation, not yet.
What about what we were saying previously?
The previous.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Pre-
I have a thought experiment. What time is
no.
it where you're at? It's 3:41.
I like thought
Yeah.
Let's back
experiments.
on. Let's turn our brains high decibels. Okay.
All right.
There was an invisible
prepare.
person. Okay. There's an invisible person. They commit crimes, but nobody notices. Does it still matter?
Wait, I'm sorry. What? What did you say?
Yeah.
Are there
Yes.
victims of these crimes?
Yes, but we don't know.
We don't know that there's
And
victims.
the victims don't know either.
Denounce.
So if a crime, so basically, is it still? Oh man!
If a tree falls in the
It's
forest,
a
and no
big,
one,
like,
yeah.
That's
if a tree
actually-
falls in a
Yeah.
forest,
So-
and crushes them.
That's-
She falls
I
in
would
the
say
forest and,
yes,
like, sound
people
someone
have a
hear
right
it.
to their oh, sorry.
Okay.
I'm having trouble with the skipping.
Sorry, that's actually interesting because for a long time I actually committed a lot of crimes. I've been to prison numerous times. I've had a long past, and one of the things that I did was I liked to break into houses of rich people and steal all the jewelry that they had hidden away because I knew for months and months they were not going to notice. They had all the jewelry that they wore on a consistent basis, like on their dresser or something like that. And then by months and months later, like they were never going to figure out who it was that did it. So like I feel like I am the invisible man in this scenario.
In a video game?
in a video
So-
game, yeah. I
No,
already got
I mean, that's-
arrested. I already got arrested
Yeah,
for
this
all
is
this
past,
stuff. I
yeah.
already did the
Yeah.
time.
It's
so.
it's okay if you saw his past.
Time served.
Yeah, yeah.
But I
like,
guess
something that he
I
does.
guess senpai to if the invisible person, I'm guessing like, what's the question of it? Is if they commit a crime, is it still a crime? Or
I would say
What should
probably
it
no.
matter?
I would
oh,
say
should it matter?
probably not. Like in
Should
the
we care?
moral case of the invisible man, he's doing something immoral in and of himself. But I'd say if there's not a victim to it, like smoking weed or something like that, then like it probably doesn't matter all in all.
No, hold on.
But there
Yeah, I would say.
so- well, go ahead, Nine Tails, and I'll go after me.
Yeah, I would say that like individuals being victims is like still matters, even if nobody notices. The lack of response does not determine if it matters or not.
So like a victim not knowing, right? That should never be the dividing line, right? Because for instance, you can take the example of corporations poisoning like your water supply, right? You may not immediately know that you've been victimized. You may never know that you were victimized by that corporation, right? But the harm can absolutely be real. The society may not know what happened. The victim may not know what happened. But in the harm is still real. So yeah, it matters. And that would be my answer, Senpai.
Okay, anybody else wants to answer? Aiko, can you answer?
What's your
What was your question? Say it again.
If there's an invisible man and they commit
Uh-huh.
crimes and there are victims, should we care?
Yeah, we should care.
But-
Well, what kind of crimes also? If there are victims of this crime,
But they don't.
Yeah, let's
know
say
they're
somebody
victims.
dies.
but
Let's
I
say
mean,
somebody dies, but we have no idea who caused it. Like it just could have been anything.
oh, when you say care, you mean like do something about it, like find out. Like
should we
how
say that
when
it's
people
wrong?
get murdered, we like try to solve the murder unless they're not white.
He's saying
Should
it's
we condemn it? Should we
is it-
condemn it? Should we like actually put thought into it and say this is wrong?
What? Wait. If someone dies because of a crime and we don't know who did it, isn't that like most crimes? Like how
Good
he
point.
knows and
Good
isn't
point,
that why
Aiko.
they're the detectives?
It's a good point.
Sure, yeah, but the person's invisible.
Isn't it
Oh,
that
then
we
should
don't?
literally invisible?
Yes. So
Isn't
like
it-
Oh.
so then the second part to this is should we expect this invisible man to conform to the norms and law and order of our society? Should we expect an invisible person to have the same moral consistency as us?
Yes, 'cause so far it seems
we
like-
can demand it, but as far as expectations, I mean, we should probably try to prevent someone from being able to exploit it because it's unlikely that there would only be one invisible person in the entire world.
until you remove a qualifier that makes them less like able than any other sentient being to like understand the like how it's wrong to do what they did, they're still just as culpable even if they're invisible and undetectable.
I barely passed my philosophy class, so I'm not too sure what the end game is, Senpai.
That's what I'm wondering too.
I think they.
I think he just popped in with a thought.
the
Is
end
that
I
what
mean,
it was?
my guess is that it's
Prime
somebody
might be onto it.
within a riot or within a protest where there's hundreds of thousands of people. No, that's not it. Okay, Prime.
Yeah, I mean,
That's relevant. That's relevant.
I think I have an idea where he's going with it, but I think we should absolutely expect that they follow those laws and those rules of society. Now,
But
will they actually? That's a different thing. Like, can we predict that they will? Right? Then we can probably predict that a lot of people wouldn't in that position, that they would take advantage of their situation. But should we expect them to? Like, I mean, maybe wording that's a weird way of wording it, but like, should they conform to the rules of society? I would say yes. The probability that they will, I would say, is low.
I would also like
it depends on
try to
what
provide like the
now.
inverse example where like if you have a Jew in the Holocaust who might have that one syndrome. Now I can't think. I can always remember it, but the syndrome where you fall in love with your captors.
Oh yeah,
Stockholm.
syndrome.
Stockholm.
yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't make the Holocaust any less severe. It
Right.
makes it kind of sadder, if anything.
Mm.
Okay.
So
Yeah, sorry. I would say that the invisible person is committing more of a crime by taking advantage of what they can exploit in society.
I mean, it would suck to be invisible. So maybe they're doing it because
Yeah,
they
tell that
feel
to the man.
helpless. Well, this is
Yeah,
the
this is
other
a weird.
thing. We would
This
have
is a
to.
weird. Yeah, sorry.
We would have to have like I imagine that at least rich people of if invisible invaders became a thing, they would have countermeasures. Like you could have like some kind of waterless mist that comes down from your ceiling, and so you can see
all
the
right.
shape of the person.
We're getting a little off topic.
Thank you. Chow, go ahead. Chow, finish it. Can you take us where we're going with this?
So the end game is to I use this to test someone's moral consistency, to see if they could actually say that this is something wrong. And everybody here has said that this was wrong. This is okay. I don't find it. I find it really hard to believe that like people still here cannot condemn what is extremism that happens on both sides, if that is the case. We can be consistent with an invisible man, but we can't be consistent with one action that is occurring on both sides of an ideology of a spectrum.
I think
But
the
it's
problem.
not,
We can though.
Well, exactly, right?
I
not.
think the problem is when you put it into a team versus team aspect, then all of a sudden it's I am furthering my goals through this invisible man. And if you put it into that aspect to where this invisible man is able to make what I want, hopefully come to fruition, then maybe the answer is a little bit different at that point.
So I disagree.
That means
I
you have
don't
to justify the means.
I don't want to say I entirely disagree with what Tom just said, but I don't think that's the larger issue, because now you're taking it out of the abstract, right? Now we can actually talk about these actions and see whether they were wrong or they weren't, or they were extreme or were they not, right? Like,
Exactly.
like is protesting, is blocking the highway, is that an extremist action? Some people would say yes, right?
Well, they're dumb.
But most
They
of,
are dumb.
most of the time,
but-
your morals are in the abstract. Like your principles are things that you set based on what you believe, and then when you come to it enacting in front of you, that's when you put these things into action, right? So it's normally in the abstract.
All morality is,
Right.
and that's why we have to.
Hold on,
I would
the
agree.
specifics
allow
matter. We
for
don't list like a set of morals, right? And just say like, and blindly follow them without understanding context, because like the context of whatever happened like is just as important, right? Not just like some vague sense of morality that like I guess you have to follow. You can't even guide yourself without those specifics. I know other people who do philosophy could probably say what I'm saying a lot a lot more elegantly. But like I feel like without that context, you can't even guide yourself. Right? You're just simply like acting on this vague sense of this good, this bad, right? So like the specifics matter. Sorry.
So
I would say that like when you get into more extremes, you get into fewer examples where you can have your own opinion. So if you're an extremist, you're a part of the group, and therefore group accountability is more likely, and you're more likely to see rhetoric that supports the actions that people of that group end up doing. Whereas in the middle, it's more easy to say, well, it's equally, like, justice is equally applicable. So I think when we look at something like fascism, and we can start to use historical context, especially when their rhetoric matches the rhetoric of fascists in the past. When we control for like socioeconomics and stuff like that.
So I wouldn't give him even that much nine tails, because what he's doing is equivocating. Well, at least what I think Child's doing is equivocating, right? Giving a both sides take, right? Well, the both sides are doing extremism, and you're simply not recognizing it, right? I would say, looking at the context, looking at like the actual real actions of both sides, you can tell they are not the same. So like,
I'm not saying I'm just saying that like you're more likely to get net culpability. You're more able to use net culpability on the extreme ends, and when you do, Prime, I think you're right.
Well, I think, Chow, if you don't mind, like, because I think though, like, yeah, it's a Prime's point though, like, well, so one is just the I think we all agree that morality is subjective, based on predominantly where you live around the world. But then, like, to the same degree, there is that need to add that nuance, the context of the situation and the intent of it, because otherwise, an example is killing someone. Like if we just said, hey, is killing someone bad, we'd all say yes, but then we'll bring up, well, self-defense. Now we have a means, a context, and an intent where we may otherwise justify killing someone to save yourself. And so I think in that sense,
yes
when we
until
apply,
I knew the context.
Yeah,
I think people shouldn't answer until they know context.
Like, I think it's at that point is where we then could apply a, and I'll admit it's a artificial and subjective standard, but it'd be based on the context of the situation on that case by case. But like I said, it's arbitrary and subjective. But then and that, I guess that puts us into the nothing sandwich where people just debate it all day.
I'd like to hear Chow.
I would say
respond.
Sorry.
To that one. Yeah, I was hoping I can get Chow's critique of that.
I do have a really good.
Chow, let him respond to that. Chow.
Okay, so in response to the context, this is kind of the whole point of the thought experiment, is to take it in the abstract, to remove all the externalities, and to just make a sound judgment. And the context that was brought up that I like the most, that I really think hit the head on the nail, came from Tom Fleury, in that he was saying that, hey, in the context that it brings gain to one side or the other, then maybe the invisible man doing whatever they want is a-okay, so long as we gain. The ends justify the means. And is that something that we would want to move forward?
No, I wouldn't say that. Okay.
Wait,
Can I just quickly respond? Because I was going to already. Thank you. I would say, like, if you break this down to a community and why a community might not think this, if Timmy breaks a window, that's one thing, bad Timmy. But if the Hell's Angel came up and said, okay, Timmy, go break that window, and Timmy knew what the Hell's Angels does. Oh, sorry, Hell's Angels is a local gang. So that might not be a familiar name ever, but it is a biker gang, somewhat popular. I don't know how popular it actually is. But and if that gang, if everyone knows how violent that gang is, including Timmy, so he knows who he's breaking that window for. So we can't say oh, he was naive. Then I think that is like a higher degree of severity in what they've done.
Well, I think that though, when we're looking at BLM comparing or committing what we would normally consider terrorist attacks, like a violent acts with it for a for a political. as I was saying, violent acts for a political gain normally qualifies as a terrorist act. Like this
That's
is
fucking
And it's
bullshit.
planned.
is that not the if you would like to
I
look up the
denounce
definition,
everything that you just said.
if you would like
How
to,
dare you
if-
equate
if you-
BLM to terrorism?
if you would like to
Like,
look up the
no.
definition of a terrorist attack, I will wait.
I don't care about
They were being
that.
You don't care
terrorized.
about-
They were
you-
doing that in
hold on.
opposition to
No,
being
no, no.
terrorized.
Hold on.
People
hold on,
love
hold on.
okay.
Hold on,
People
hold on.
love the dictionary
Hold on.
so much
Yes.
than when they want to be literal. But if we talk about terrorism, like what terrorist attacks have they actually done?
Okay, so we could talk about
It was by the
we could-
police. That's what he's trying to equivocate. It was by the police. All the terrorist attacks were by the police.
The police also commit terrorist attacks, but yes, like yes,
Right.
definitions matter for sure. Definitions matter. I don't know
Words
what you were talking.
matter.
And so if we're talking about BLM and terrorist attacks committed by definition, yes.
Okay, give me your definition.
I
Which
just did.
definition should I look
I
up?
just did.
No, where should I look up the definition? Because
Burning
different
down-
places
burning
have different
down and breaking
definitions.
into- Burning down and breaking into a building, a violent act.
I said violent acts with normally like political gains. So if we look at the BLM with terrorist acts, and we say like normally we agree with the end game here. Like we believe that this is this is just because we agree with what it is that they're fighting for. And then people who are brainwashed by people that they follow, authority figures within our own government, are telling them that these votes are fraudulent on the right. They're going to look at storming of the Capitol and say, yes, this is just because they don't believe in systemic racism, but they do believe that all of their votes were fraudulent. And so now they believe that these terroristic acts are just because they think that this is because the end game is good. And so,
Tom,
yes,
I don't think like the left absolving BLM or like I guess members of BLM for perhaps burning a police building or breaking a window is as like common as you think. I think a lot of people are willing to admit that like that really hurt BLM, and like, but also at the same time you have to remember that like that this is how mad these people are. This is like they're so mad, and they're the ones who feel terrorized by the police.
I agree.
To them it's like not as much terrorizing as putting pressure against the institutions which are doing this to them.
I agree.
Whereas I don't think,
go ahead.
BLM has just like mountains of quantifiable data to back what they did. And that data started arising well before they started protesting. In fact, that was a response to a lack of response by the system to that data.
I agree.
And what I'm going to say is that the people protesting the vote, they have seen that there's not data. They've been told by everybody that there's not the data there. They just want to believe that the data there, and that preference, that prejudice, that entitlement to do this is to me why I think that this is like morally like just incomparable. Like it's just not linear like that.
Kind of. One, they don't trust the people who are doing the data. They think that they're biased. But two, they also have data to say that like this happens on such a small amount of police encounters with other people in a country where there's so many guns owned, to where you would imagine that there is going to be a larger amount of
Hey, do you not believe in systemic racism?
I do. We're not talking about me right now. We're talking about the
Yeah,
right.
so
No,
you're
we
saying,
are.
can I just try to steelman that? You're saying that people who don't think that it's morally just might say like what you just said, that sorry, can you?
I'm
Damn
saying
it, I lost it. I tried
overall,
my
what
best.
I'm saying is that what is morally just, you guys probably agree, is based on what it is that you gain out of it. Like sometimes the means justify the ends.
No,
And for
that's
people-
No,
not.
I would
that's
try to
not
apply it equally to both sides.
Okay, so for people who are on the right who think that like we believe that the election was stolen from us.
Okay,
like,
let's stop. I'm sorry, but like we would just say like if the left did what the right did, we like I don't know if I'd be disgusted as the left did. I'm just saying, the double standard from the system. But also, I think that, like, I don't think you'd get nearly as many leftists trying to defend it. I think you'd see a lot of leftists being, that was cringe. Please, like, okay,
Don't
boomer
do
kind of
that.
thing.
Yeah.
And so again, I am also trying to steel man their one act versus a couple hundred on the other side. They feel as though this one was only towards one goal at one point with all of them together at once versus a bunch of random people committing a bunch of random acts all over the place that wasn't coordinated. It wasn't, it didn't seem to have an end goal in mind, whereas theirs did.
Wait, which one?
Which one? I just said hundreds. Like
No, I mean, no.
But
Wait,
you
said
use two different days in
Which-
them, so it's like a confusion.
which
sensitivity.
one
Yeah.
was?
sorry. Okay. Yes.
Wait, are you referring to one of them as being not organized?
Yes, I was saying like the left had BLM had hundreds of protests all over the place. They weren't really organized within one another. They weren't communicating with one another. They were all just saying, "Hey, we disagree with this act, and we're all going out and protesting." Whereas one was saying, "We are going out. We're all together. We are, we're coordinated. We are committing one act that is supposed to get one outcome, and that's the end of it."
Yeah, I'd like to respond real quick because I'm actually going to head out. So on one side, so they did just want to do that one thing, but this is why I actually say it's more about shit. I keep forgetting my point. I really am tired. Crap.
It's late. It's fair.
Well, we're going to end any which way. So, thank you all for being here. We can pick up this discussion at some other time. I think it's actually really
one last thing, one final thing, which is that terrorism is more directed at terrorizing civilians. So
the people who
I
own
think
the
that's the difference.
billions are civilians normally.
The people what?
The people who
That
own the
own the
buildings or work in the buildings are
So
civilians.
Definitely BLM is trying to terrorize.
I will send you an
guys,
invite.
if you I don't care. So guys, if you enjoy this conversation, please give me a follow